Get started. Let's go with our pie charm. I think I have it open, and we're gonna go. I think this is should be week 8. No, it's week 7. All right, I don't know. Let's say week 8. So we make sure we have Python 3.6. Everything sets properly. Create a new project. I'm gonna open it in a new window, and here we go. Have some coffee. I need it. All right. All right, so we are ready to go. What we're gonna do, we're gonna right click here and just generate the Python file here. Let's call it main for now. And here it is. I think that's small, right? Because let me just check the size of the oh, it's 40. I guess that's fine, right? You guys can see this? Yeah, all right. Good. Every time I connect the laptop, it's a little bit smaller than it's supposed to be. I'm gonna just... So today, we're gonna go through a simple concept of programming called garbage in, garbage out. So as I mentioned, if you have to control your input or you have to clean it up or receive, not control, receive, I would say is better, receive a right input to generate a right output. I have a typo, I'm gonna fix that. So that's the idea of, where's my mouse? Right there. Alright. So the idea is this. So if you have a garbage input, you're gonna generate garbage output. That's what it is. It's an old saying. It's really popular. There's a couple of ways of doing that. One of them is input validation loop. What it is we're gonna keep asking simple words, keep asking user to give us the right input. So that's the idea of it. Simple. So we're gonna do the simple validation loop first. Then we're gonna repeat one of the programs we did last week and improve it again with this. So let's say I want to ask the user to insert. So we're gonna ask them for the age and then ask them, okay, integer input, and ask them to enter you're right. So this is a simple thing we did before, but there's a possibility the user to enter, let's say, a negative number. It's funny that way, but user don't know. I accidentally put negative, or the age definition is from 1 to whatever. Right? We can't really accept the negative number, so we can always do that. Let's say while simple word, simple validation loop, age is less than equal than 0. So that's opposite of whatever we want. Keep asking the same question. So this is a simple validation loop, obviously. Right? So what I'm gonna do, some people don't know if they get the same question, they think it's some sort of error. I'm gonna just change the message again. I'm gonna just show them the input, the age. Alright, gonna add a line on the top of it. I'm just gonna let them know the age has to be positive, obviously. I know it seems obvious, but you don't know what kind of user you get, right? You always have to plan for the worst. So the age has to be positive, and then we're gonna, it says enter. So the input validation loop, basically what it is you won't use it unless the user actually enters something wrong. So after my loop, I'm just gonna print your age is whatever the user gave me, right? So in this simple example, let me just run it. Ask me for that. If I put 18, no problem. You're never gonna go through that loop. It's never gonna get activated. It's fine. It prints the age. So your age is 18. Done. However, if you put, let's say, -2, it's entered to the input validation loop. It tells you, hey, it's positive. So enter the age again. If the user don't read that, which happens 95% of the time, and just keep repeating, doing the same thing, let's say -8, you're gonna keep asking. So that's the point. If they put the wrong input, we're gonna keep asking. -20, -5, doesn't matter. So at 0, still not. So 1, we are good, let them go. So we never let them go till they give us the right answer. And that's the idea of input validation. So you're gonna think what possibly can go wrong and think what you can do with it. So one of the thing is doing the input validation. The idea is you can force the user to enter the thing or the input you need for your program to work. So that's the idea here. Let's go do the old program we did, which is a really classic example here. We're gonna import our random library, which is we learned last time, and I'm gonna do my guess game again. So the guess game we did last time, I'm just gonna do it quickly because the last time we had the number was 7. We asked the user to guess it. There was 3 possibilities. It was either exact number, which the game was over, or it was higher or lower. And based on that, if it's lower, we're gonna keep asking the user to guess something higher, or if it was higher, we're gonna ask them to guess something lower till they get the exact number we want. So we can even push or force the user to guess whatever we wanna, or whatever we want them to enter into your program. This time we're gonna do it with basically a random number that I have no idea what it is. You can't even force the user to enter something you have no idea. So let's say there's a number, let's call it to be yes. I don't even know what that number is. I'm just gonna generate a random system. Let's call it a multiplier. That's a really common way of practice to doing it. So we're gonna define a multiplier, let's say 20, and we're gonna get that 20 and multiply it by a random. So the random is basically generate something between 0 to 1, and I'm gonna make that an integer. So the number would be, let's do that +1, because I don't want to have zeros. So something like that. This is a random generator or random number, or you can use any function you like. If you want to kind of create some sort of boundary or interval, you can go from 1 to 100, up to you what you want. So here I just formalize something out of this, and we're gonna declare a guess number that says set it to be 0, and this is a validation loop as till the guess number is not equal to be guessed. We're gonna keep asking. So first we're gonna ask. So right away I said that these two not gonna be the same because I set that to 0 initially, and I add 1 to this. So the minimum number that I'm gonna have as to be guessed is 1, right? Because if I don't add this, this could be 0. So we're gonna guess, ask the user, okay, give me an integer input. So the user gonna guess, and we check for, we did this before, so I'm gonna do it a little bit faster than you. So if the guess is higher than 0, or so there is a couple of conditioning here, right? We're gonna create the game a little bit different now. We're gonna do this like that. We're gonna ask guess a number, and also print the message say if you want to give up. Let's do this. Let's make the game a little bit better. Guess there's a number. That's a positive number. That's the number. So it has to be positive or something like that. If you want to quit the game, enter a negative number. So that tells the user the number they're guessing is positive, and if they're giving up, just they can put negative and the guessing game stops. Alright, so then we're gonna say if the guess is positive, means the player wanna play. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna do our thing. So we're gonna say if the guess is positive, and the guess is greater than to be guessed, which is that random number we generated before, then we're just gonna let the user know the number, the guessed number is too big, it's too large, and else if basically if it's the other way around. Too small. And I'm gonna write the else here. So there's two. Alright, let's take a look. Let's analyze that. There's a couple of problems in my face, and I know how to fix it, but I'll just let it be, and let's find out those together. So what it is we generate a random number. We don't know what it is. The only thing I set it to be is positive, and it's something between 0 to 21. this guy generates something, a random number between 0 and 1. So if it generates 1 and n is 20 right now, that would be 20 times 1 plus 1, that would be the biggest one. And the lowest number would be, so this generate random number 0, 0 times 20 is 0, and 1. So the range is between 1 and 21. I use it that way. You can use the better system. You can do that, let's say either that, or I can use random dot rand int, right? Do it between 1 and 21. I don't know. Whatever you like to. That's the same thing. Alright, so we said that the minimum is 1, then we set the guess number to 0. That means there is no way you have a 0 as your to be guess number. So this is set something between 1 and 21, and this is 0. Means under any circumstances you enter this loop. So this is a do while loop. Because this is 0, this is between 1 and 21, right? So that means they are, for the first try, they're not gonna be the same. Therefore, we enter this loop no matter what. So we said as far as they are not the same, keep repeating. Then we ask the user to guess a number. So we're updating the guess value, guess integer here, or guess variable here. And then we also let the user know if they want to quit, they're just gonna enter the negative number. If they, so there's two chances. They either put positive or negative. So if they put the positive, we're just gonna check the number they put is bigger than the number I have. I don't know what it is, random, or it's the smallest. So we let them know here. So if it's bigger, we said we're gonna print this message, tell them it's bigger. It's a little bit different than the program we did last time. And if it's smaller, we're just gonna let them know. Then we're just gonna leave this and repeat. We're not gonna go through this else, because this if else is actually kind of alternative dual decision, right? So if we go through this, we're not gonna go through the else. And we're gonna repeat and repeat and repeat. So what's the problem here? I'm gonna show you this. So let me run it and see what's the problem. Oh, that's the previous one. Let's put 18. Oh, so first thing I'm gonna call the module, right? I forgot to do that. We're gonna go all the way back and call the guess game. So that's the first try. Let's try it. It's not calling the. All right. So guess a number. I don't know what it is. Let's call 20. So if you want to quit the game, enter a negative number to guess the number, and the guess number is too large. So 20 is too large. Let's do 10. Too large still. 5. Too small. So it's between 5 and 10. 7. Too small. 8. Too small. 9. And that's it. So 9 is the answer. So we're gonna let the user know. So when we leave the loop, means they find the name. They find the. So this is a loop. When I'm leaving the loop, we're just gonna print the guess. The correct answer is something like that. Okay, so there's a problem. So let's debug that. What I'm gonna do is just gonna comment this this part. Now that's fine. It's not a module. Here we go. So let's put the 18 here, and here we go. So 8 is too small. 10. Oh. So this is one of the error I caused accidentally. Instead of 10, I put 10 points. Right. So this is an error, which is we're gonna think about it later. I'm gonna teach you how to handle that because it's an invalid input. But let's leave it for now. So let's say 18. Let's go 15. Too large. 10. Too large. 7. Too large. Oh God. 5. Oh, okay. So the 5 is the answer. So who can tell me what's the problem here? So one of the things is I see this message again, right? But beside the fact is it seems everything works fine, right? So I guess the number, I don't know what it is, I try to guess it, it gives me the number. But let's say I want to quit the game, right? The idea was if I put negative, I should leave it. So here you go. I put, that's the first, so let's say the first number is 15. It says it's too large. So now, you know, I'm done with this. This is too long, so I put -7. So what happens here is that if you want to quit the game, enter a negative number. Sorry, you are giving up. So you recognize I'm not playing, but it keeps me asking again or guess a number. So did I say I need to quit? So what happens here? -1. So sorry to give up, but still keep me the answer for this. So I'm not leaving the loop though for this. So let's go take a look how we can fix this. This is an interesting concept. So what am I here as? We are going to do this. So we're going to take this message out of the loop. I don't want to keep showing that every time, right? It's pointless. So we're going to take that. This is an improvement. We realize this message become annoying every single time. So we're going to go before the loop. On the top, we're just going to let them know if you want to leave, just enter the negative number, right? So this is one improvement. Second, so when I enter, so we enter the loop, right? So the number, for no matter what, this is a do while loop. I enter the loop, and then let's say the user give me negative number, right? So we're gonna enter that. We're gonna enter here and print sorry, you want to give up. What happens here is you go back to the while loop. You never left the while loop. Negative number still make this condition valid. Let's say the number guess is -7 or -1. Still not exactly the number we want to. So still your loop is valid. So no matter what you do, you can't really leave the loop unless the guess number is the same as the number we want. Right? So that's the idea. So what should I do? I want them, if they haven't entered the negative number, I want to leave the loop. For that, I gotta introduce you to something called a break. So break is basically a reserve word for you, just in case you want to leave the loop or any even condition under circumstances like this. So the condition is true, but also if something else happened, I want to just leave the loop no matter what. So in this case, if the users put negative number, I simply print that and use the break. Means if you get here, you're gonna leave the loop no matter what. So the break, basically break out of the loop. So no matter what it is, even the condition is not true, just leave it. So there's a condition like that, you need to use that. All right, let's run it again. So let's see how's our improvement going. Enter a number, -2. So it says, sorry, you're giving up. Your correct answer is 15. So we're not entering because they use the break and leave the loop whatever it is. Right? Okay, so let's this is kind of an invalid loop. So we learned that you can have a loop to ask, you keep asking a user the thing you want, they're gonna give it to you no matter what. So that's the invalid loop. Sorry, that's a valid validation loop. So now we're gonna talk about catching an error. All right, so let's talk about that. So, all right, so let's define a function called a divide. And what it does, it gets two numbers x and y as an input, and simply divide those. So the example I made in the class, right? So I said we have two numbers, you get it from the user and divide, right? And then we're gonna print. Let's use it as a function. So we're gonna return the result. Simple enough, right? It's a really simple function. And let's have two numbers here. So you're gonna be a integer. We're gonna ask the inputs for number 1. Simple prompt. I don't want to go crazy on here. Integer inputs, and we're gonna do number 2. And then what we're gonna call is divide up and send A and B there. Okay, so this is a simple program we did before. It's you get two inputs from the user, you send it to the module or the function you defined, you divide those together, get the result, return the result, and then set it here. You're just going to use a function, whatever we learned before, and simply you can print here the division of the answer to, let's say, A divided by, where's the division? Can use that, or let's say is equal to result, right? So what we're going to do is just that. So the normal way of doing this, let me just start calling this module again. I don't want to play this game every single time. And I'm just going to put this guy in a module. So we're going to call this def age. Just select all, press tab, all done. So I don't have any interruption. Just going to go focus on this. Let's run this, and what you're gonna say is ask for number 1. Let's go 5 divided by 2, right? That's gonna give me 2.5. So it says the answer, missing the R here. The answer for answer to 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So it works perfectly, it's fine. So now let's say what can go wrong. One of the things is this. So user put 5 and put 0. And guess what? So we're going to have an error here. And the error is right there. So it's a 0 division error. Means division by 0. So we're going to tell them what to do. That's mathematically doesn't understand. So what should I do? Let's go here. So in my module, what I'm gonna do is this. So before I do anything else, I know the error happens here, right? In this my mathematical equation, right? I am going to use this. So I'm gonna try this before I generate any results. So I said, okay, try this first. Okay, so it gives me some sort of error because you're gonna try it first, and if it's any error, then you're gonna tell them what to do with that error. Then you're gonna go here and say, okay, if you have exceptions like this one that I had, so this is one of the things, like zero divided error, because this is a defined error in the system. If you have this guy, okay, print, what you do is just print divided by 0. Let's say invalid input divided by 0, right? So what I'm doing right now is just inform the person what they did instead of my program crashes. Divide, here we go. Right, so this is tells me, so I'm gonna try this, and if that exception happens, we're gonna show this message for them. So number 1, 5, still if you have no exception, it works perfectly, right? But if you have one, so 5 divided by 0, oh, you still have an error. So let's see what's the problem. Alright, so we're gonna detect it now. If you can see, it says invalid input divided by 0, but we didn't do anything by that. So we just detect and tell the user what they did. But here when we want to return it, we still get the error because it tried to return something that is invalid. What I did, I just tried it and detect the error. So we can't really return anything here yet. So what I'm gonna do is this. So I'm gonna fix it, right? So I said, okay, show the user this, and again ask for that's one way. I'm gonna ask him from the user to enter those numbers. That's one way. There's many ways to doing this, obviously. And then we get those numbers and call the module again. So this is calling the module inside the module again. So go start over and try it again. So in that case, if I have an error, I'll go here, tell the user what's happening, ask for two other number 1 and number 2 again, call the divide with these new numbers, go up here and try that again. And if it's still like user put the same thing, we're gonna do the same thing. It's kind of a loop using a module or function itself. So let me try that. So 5 and 0, here we go. So what it is, I said invalid input divided by 0, number 1 again. You can get the number 2 only, obviously. So 5 and 2. Oh, now we have error again. It tells me the local variable result in reference before, because we used that before. We're gonna be careful with that, because we are not done with it. What I'm gonna do for now, I'm gonna get rid of the return because it's problematic. Let's get the basic, understand the basic, then we're gonna make it complicated. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this message out and I'm gonna print it here though. So here we're gonna do that. We're gonna say okay. When I say, okay, try this, if you have an exception, the division exception like that, 0 divided error, show the error, update those values, and go call this again, and try that again and again and again till you get the numbers that you have no errors. There is no 0 in it. And when you're done, then just print what we're gonna do. We're gonna just print the results. We're gonna say, okay, x and y, because now we are in the local variable, equals to the result. So let's try it now. So 5 divided by 0, invalid input, divided by 0, again. Then we can get the answer. So what we learned here is this. You can try, so let me write it. So the format is using the try. So you use a try like that. So you're gonna have try, and you write whatever equation or whatever function you have, or whatever processing. And this helps you, or statements, I don't know, let's put it as statements. So statements. And then you're gonna write else. The try else is this. So even you try that, you have a problem or you don't. If you don't have a problem, you do whatever you want to do in the else. However, if you have a problem in try, you have to catch it, right? So what you're gonna do, you're gonna have except. So this is gonna be the exception type. So he said if that exception happens, then do that and do this. So what happens here? You try something. If you have an exception, you're gonna do the exception. If you don't, you jump to else. So the exception and else not gonna happen at the same time, right? It's alternative. And there is another one, call it finally. And what happens in finally, you print, or those statements will run every time. Doesn't matter. If you have an exception, you don't have an exception, you want to run that, it's always in finally. Let's try that out. So here we're gonna have, so we have try this, the exception, else, and now I'm just gonna add the finally. We're just gonna, I don't have anything to print every single time. I'm just gonna write executing finally clouds. Just want to show you when it actually happens. So right now, when I'm sending these two numbers up, 3 cases. So one is everything's fine. I'm gonna go 5 divided by 2. You try those equation right now. If you have you have an error, you do except or exception. If you don't have an error, you're just gonna do else. So that's what it is. So if you have an error, so you try that. If you have an error, you do exception. If you don't have an error, you're just gonna go else, which is print the result. And under both circumstances, you should be able to see the finally statements, which is printing this line here. So let's try that. So 5 divided by 2. You can see everything's fine, and you also run the finally. You don't run the exceptions. Now here, so let's go 5 and 0. You run the exceptions. I'm still running the exceptions, right? And I'm asking numbers again, 5 and 3. And then we get the answer here. Guess what? Why we have 2 finallys? Because every time we try, the final will run. So if I run this again and say, okay, 5 and 2, 5 and 1, oh, that's good. Let's go 5 and 0, doesn't work. 3 and 0, and 4 and 2, how many times are gonna see the finally clause? 3 times, right? So finally, it doesn't matter. Is an exception is not every time when you try something it runs. So just you should know is try, except, else, and finally. These 4 works accordingly. Let's try another example of that. As then we're gonna take the break. So we're gonna write a validation loop using this exception too. So we're gonna do defensive programming with validation. So we're gonna do while is true. What that even means. So what's the condition there? Alright, let's continue. We're gonna write a input validation loop with defensive programming. So we're gonna integrate both of them together. So the idea is we're gonna ask for the A, ask user for an age, and if they are, let's say if the age is greater than 18, that means they can, let's say, vote in Canada, and if it's not, it is they cannot. So this is a possibility. However, we learned that computer doesn't really understand what age is, right? So it could be go negative. We have to do that input validation loop. Also, there's some sort of things can happen here. So we're gonna cover that. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have this. This is an infinite loop. So if you put true in the cloud, or for a condition, that means just keep repeating, because the condition never will be false, so just keep repeating that. This is another way of doing it, because today we learned break. So anytime we want to leave the loop, we can use the keyword break to break out of the loop. So I can put that in an infinite loop. So if you want a loop that just repeats itself till you tell the loop stops or break out, you can use this technique. So this is going to be an infinite loop. Unless we defined it otherwise. Alright, so we're going to do that. So first thing we're going to do, same thing. Let me take a look. So we're going to try, so we learned that today, the age first. So we're going to say, hey, here we go, give me an integer input. Alright, so what kind of expectation or acceptation I expect? What's going to happen here? So we're going to try that. It gives me an error because each try at least needs some sort of accept, so it doesn't work together. So what kind of expectation I might have when I'm asking for the age? Besides being the negative number, which is negative number is not the error, right? So this is not a defensive error. It's just user give you a negative number. We don't want it. Program doesn't really crash or anything like that because the number is negative. So that's something we can solve or resolve using input validation. But for other exceptions, it's like this. Let me just comment that before I start. So I'm just gonna get rid of this, talk about it first, and we're gonna do this. Let me comment that. So when you have an input like this, let's say age, Alright, so let's just put integer here. Say, how old are you? And we're gonna print that. So back to the initial code we had. So when we have this, couple of things can go wrong. Oh. So how old are you? Let's say 15. And you see the number. So this is not a problem. We have two problems here. One is the user put negative 12 or 13. That is a valid number for the program, is not a valid number for us, because this doesn't make sense, right? And the other one is they just, let me skip that, they just type their age. They said I'm 20, but they don't know they have to put numbers. They type, that's a valid input from the user. So guess what? I'm gonna have an error. Why? Because we try to convert that to the integer, that is strings, and doesn't make sense to this function that I have, that 20. So it's not base 10, which is not the number. So it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can't really translate that. So give me the value error. Means I expect a value, give me a string, I can't really convert. So this is an 1. So we're gonna cover that. Which is a possibility. It happens a lot. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back to my while infinite loop, and I'm just gonna first get rid of this, and I'm gonna try this to find and catch that exceptions, right? So we're gonna try the edge, and what I'm gonna do, each try needs an exception. So if that exception happens, so that's the name of it, value error. What we're gonna do, we're gonna print, say sorry, didn't there we go. And for the other one, we're gonna go if age is less than 0. We're gonna say, okay, sorry, so this is a combination of both. One is we checking for not be negative, and the other one is, so we ask it here every time. So every time we enter the loop, we try this. Is either have an exception, gonna catch that and let them know, and guess what? We're gonna repeat the loop. This is never stops, right? And if this is the other case, the input is a number, but it's like less than a negative, I mean less than 0, which is a negative number. We tell them, hey, the answer cannot be negative. And then, so how do we leave then? If like both of them are true, so there's a try and expect. If that we don't catch anything, we are fine here. If so here we're gonna say, okay, else if that's, so if we don't catch the error here, we are fine. So if they put the number, we are fine. Then if the number is not negative, we are also fine. And in this case, we just gonna break out. This mouse doesn't work. So that's how we leave the loop. Otherwise, we're just gonna do this forever. There is no other way to check this condition. There is a way you can do that. It's complicating. So we repeat this, and we check for anything we want in there, and as soon as none of them are valid, means there's no errors, then we're gonna break out and let the program continue. We don't let anything get in unless it's perfectly clean answer. So let's try that, and let's say, okay, we did all that, and here what I'm gonna do when I'm breaking out, then I just simply go here, and we said if age, because the idea is if your age is 18, you can vote. And otherwise, something like that, right? So in this point, it's a simple code here, checking the condition you're over 18 and not to vote, but think it that way. There's many other possibilities you can cause error. So when you get to this point, you know you have a number, and that number is greater than 0. Then you can easily, let's say this is simple code, but easily you know your code works properly, and you can only focus on your code. So let's see if that works or not. It's probably giving me some errors, so I'll fix it and let me move forward. Alright, so let's say start with the vote. So let's say 20. Alright. Oh. So what happens is we check the condition first, and it says 20, and it goes to the exception, so it catch that and tells me, hey, I didn't understand that. Now the thing is, then it goes and check the second condition, which was the age is less than 0. We don't want that, right? Because these are kind of mutually exclusive. So this one, the first one is for entering string instead of number. The second one, you enter the number, but is non-negative. Actually, it's negative, so it's like negative 18. So what I do this is kind of gonna. No, this is a tricky part. So when you try doing that, then basically we're gonna, because it's gonna continue. I think the best way to do and fix this problem is here. We're just gonna say, hey, continue. So if you get this, do not do this and just continue checking. So in that case, you just check this first. Then if it's no problem, then I'm gonna go there. Let's try that it actually fix it or not. So let's go 20. There we go. So what continue does is when you check that, you go again and try that. So it doesn't skip and go there. It just doesn't let it go and continue to keep checking this exception and not go the next. Because if you don't have that, it's done finding exception. It shows the message, go check this next condition, which is that not working with the other one. So you have to fix this first, then go check for another one. These are mutually exclusive. So if you don't put continue, means like keep trying till you get the right answer. What do? We try it once, then jump and check the A here, and if it's negative, because you can't really compare the string, so it gives you problems. So you fix with these tiny little things here. So that's another reserve word. So it means continue doing something. Let's try that. So how old are you? Let's go 20. They understand that. So we can actually tell them that, okay, because we know what it is now. Type a number, example, let's say, here we go, like 2, for 2. Something like this. So we let the user know what they're supposed to do, because they probably can't figure it out. So again, 1 and 1. So let's say 20. I say, you understand that? Type a number like 2, example 2 for 2. So we're gonna go 20 now. Hopefully the user understand, but I say don't say put negative 20. So that's the second problem we had. I say sorry, we cannot respond. You must the response must not be negative. So then we go 20. So here we go. You are able to vote again. We make sure there is no other version of this that we don't cover. So it's a string that we don't understand. We go and continue to keep asking that. So there is that, and there is a condition. So we said, okay, if it's negative, make sure that's positive, and that's in an infinite loop. So we keep asking until give us the right answer. If they type 10 times 20, we gotta check for 10 times, right? So when that is done, then it's a simple part of the programming that we are sure when we get here that we have a positive number and that is a number, no matter what. So that means the input is validated and is correct. Then if there's a problem, would be in my code and in my basically programming skills or whatever it is. Making the input validated is one of the challenging part of the programming, so it's important. It takes time to master it. I just want to tell you the idea. You don't need to really code it that advanced, right? That is what it is. Okay, so we're just gonna do the whole program about the warehouse, and then we're gonna wrap it up. So let's call this I don't know, wholesale. It's a simple validation loop. We did some sort of codes like that, but this one has the input validation loop. So this program basically calculates retail price we're gonna define a global constant, call it markup. It's a global constant, which is a markup percentage. So we're going to define that markup as a retail terminology, and then we're going to define our main. And what we're going to do is first we're going to define a variable to control my loop, right? So we're gonna define a variable called another, or basically repeats, or whatever you call it. I usually call it confirm myself. Usually they use it another, up to you. So we're gonna put that y, and we're gonna create the do while loop. So this is supposed to repeat itself as much as the user wants. So this is the ask user, would you like to continue and repeat the program kind of loop. I'm not going to have an input validation loop inside of that. So as far as another is that or this, because the user might put any of those, we're going to call a function or module called show retail. So this is my module. I haven't write it yet, so it's red, is it like an error, and then we're gonna ask, do you want to do it again, kind of concept. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna update my another to with the input enter y for yes, and that is my whole program. Now let's go write the retail. Simple enough. So we're going to define a module here called show retail. So first we're going to get the item wholesale, so cost, so we need that. We're going to just define the wholesale as a variable here, wholesale, or sell float. So it's gonna be input. We ask them enter the items. There's one item, so there's other items. Wholesale price. So we're gonna ask for that. Alright, so now we want to make sure same validation loop. So this is a loop inside another loop. So we're gonna say while your wholesale is negative, so which is always the validation loop is a case that we don't want, because that's why we repeat, right? Otherwise it's pointless. We're gonna print the, let's say, error. Cost cannot be negative. So you guys learn, if you see an error now with the red at the bottom when your program breaks down, you can kind of have a solution for it. That's the idea you guys gonna know. I go float input. So we're gonna ask that again, right? So what I'm gonna do is just gonna copy paste. So if they simple validation loop. So we say the cost cannot be negative. Here we go. Typo. I think it's negative. Here we go. And then we ask again for the wholesale. So we can say enter the item price. Just put the again here, because users think it's the same message, so they can't really comprehend and differentiate this message from the previous one they've seen. They said I'll be asking it again. So make sure you give us the right answer this time. And when this validation, so this is a validation loop. This is your input validation loop that we talked about today. And then we're gonna leave the loop, right? So this is not the right place to do that. We're gonna go leave the loop. So we go one back, and then we go retail equals to wholesale multiplied by that markup number, and we're gonna say price will be the retail price is $. We're gonna do format the retail, because this is $1, right? So we want to make sure we have 2 significant digits. So here's 2F right there, and that is that. And then we're gonna call our main and make sure everything's fine. So as fast as I can do this basic programming. So the idea is just we get the, as soon as we have an error, we're gonna address that in a second. There's an error here. Here we go. Let's see what it is. Oh yeah, so I'm missing the equal here, so that's good. So we're gonna do show retails here and repeat it again. Seems everything's fine. Let's just run it. Some coffee. It's cold. All right, so okay, so I'm gonna space that out to have a better output here. So let's put something like -5. Again, they keep asking me -20. Any negative you put, we force you to do that, right? So 65. So let's say 15. Then it goes and calculate the price of the retail. So this called markups. You get the price. There's a multiplier. You multiply it by that, and it shows you the price you're gonna sell that item. This is like a 2.5 higher than you get it from the retail. So there's a wholesale, then you distribute it with the right price. That's a multiplier. So we just multiply it by that. That's what we have. If you want to continue, continue. Okay, so what I did, I punched or typed yes instead of y. This is a common mistake also. I asked the user to give me y, but they type yes. Like I made the mistake, definitely everybody does. as a programmer. Like I designed the program, I make that mistake. Definitely people do. So how should I fix that? Here, we learned how to deal with the string. Remember that? So this was the last week. So we're gonna go another. Gonna be another. Let's put like 0 here. So we're gonna get the first letter of your string, or first word of the string, because the location was 0. We talked about it last week, so we can do this even, right? So if you did this, because of the first one all the way to first one, or we just put 0 here and update it to another. So in that case, let's run it again. So let's say 20. So if I put yes, still work as a y. So we just get the first letter, whatever I put. So if we put 13, and if they put yup, also works. Anything with y will work. But any negative, now again. So see, your program now interactive. So it has a solution. If there's something happens, it's off the whatever you expect, it throw you exception. It has solution. It validates your input. So it's kind of become intelligent now. It's kind of make sure you do the right thing. Yeah, pretty much it. All right. Any questions?